And
Really?
I was driving in from, Frederick, where I live. It's quite, it's an hour.
Yeah.
Or more, depending on what part of DC you're into. So, and we wanted to start more locally here in Frederick. So I started the local one in Frederick, and then we did them both. We did them both for a couple of months, and then the one in Frederick just took off. So
nice.
I asked people in DC, I was like, hey, does any of you guys want to take over? And no one wanted to take over. And I asked folks also about, if there's any better venue they could think of, better venue. So I just put it on hiatus. But over the years, people have contacted me, and so I keep adding them to the email list. And so I do have a pretty good email list for the people who are interested in the DC area. Yeah. And the wrong guy who responded, he's interested in
maybe leading it.
Getting going again. I don't know if he wants to lead it, but I told them I would come down and I would lead it if no one else wants to. But I'd like to transition that to somebody at some point.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, no, it would be super. Yeah, hopefully we can revive the together. Hopefully we can all revive the DC Estuary. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah. So the one in Frederick is booming. We have like the universe of about 20 people, and we have at least 10 people come every time.
That's awesome.
And if Joy is down with that, we can do that. The Friday evening thing, because I have to work on Friday because it takes so long in rush hour to get down there, I won't be able to come until just right before the meeting Friday night.
Okay. That's fine.
So, rush hour inside and around DC is just really horrible, especially on Friday. So, the beltway that surrounds DC, goes to Maryland, Virginia, and I don't know if you're familiar with it at all, but anything inside or outside, right, of that beltway, anywhere near rush hour morning or evening is just going to be hours and hours of sitting still traffic.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Joe man, do you have any thoughts on our voyage? I'm going to say some details perhaps about where we were. We didn't record much.
We are currently in Brandon's driveway preparing to depart after a glorious visit with a stranger.
A visitation, if you will.
And it was great because he wanted to practice his hosting, and we want to practice our hostiness. And so it was fun for everyone. Had lots of good conversation. Didn't record a whole lot, and it still counts as an estuary meeting because I had to give an introduction.
Yeah.
And
how did we follow the protocol? Were they following the protocol well?
Good enough. It was pretty, since it was 4 of us, it was pretty lax.
Yeah, it was just us and Brandon and his wife, and yeah, it was nice, and their children. Yeah. Cool. Stay tuned for more.
It's in line, kind of in a general sense, what's being discussed here, but maybe we can hone it in a little bit and define from the symbolic perspective and in this context what the political is.
So I think that the political is something like the intermediary world. That's the best way to understand it. And so the political is like, you could see it, the good way to understand it is left and right is actually a really good way to understand it. That it's the world of opposites. And so what happens is, especially in American politics, you can really see it kind of crystallizing that way, is that you can understand that God acts with 2 hands, right? God has the right hand and the left hand. There's mercy and there's rigor. There are 2 sides to making this thing move. You have to extend mercy and rigor for anything to actually exist. And so that's the place of the political in terms of social, where if you're too strict, at some point you crystallize. If you're too flexible, at some point you decompose. And so there's this discussion, constant discussion, right, about the situation and how to adapt the bigger bodies, like these communal bodies, to what's happening and what's happening internally. And so it's always messy, it's always difficult, it's always a problem. But when we if we at least focus on something above it, then hopefully we're able to kind of navigate without excess. What is it? There's that one of my favorite quotes from Rumi, who says that, you know, the way we do things is the hand must open and close subtly like the wings of a butterfly. But if you leave the hand completely closed, or if you leave the hand completely open, then you're paralyzed. And that's what we see in the political problem today, is that let's say the left and the right, or the open and the closed, or whatever, the opposites, instead of being, you know, the two sets of a motor that make the thing go, they've become like two polar opposites that can't talk to each other anymore. And so we have a kind of frozen situation. And that comes from not having anything above you. That's what it comes from, right? It's the knowledge of good and evil. It's the fall into opposites without a transcendent unity.
We have made it to surrender. We have made it to DC.
That's what the map says.
Here we are.
I figured we were going to be hot today one way or another in DC.
We'll probably put like a fan up here as well until we figure it out.
You got it. Take a right at the next light.
I almost think we should have Joe drive, because he's never been to DC. Joe, are you going to be watching from back there?
I'd rather not drive.
I can sit back there. We're going to be a while before we get there. We're still in Maryland. Someone will bring a guitar, or we'll just start singing in the park. And we would have, you know, campfires and cookouts and help people in the community, you know, just, you know, different people in the group or in the community help people out, you know, and that was how we did things. And people's homes would have like a prayer meeting or Bible study or something like that.
Yeah, that's cool. That's pretty much what I think how it should be, pretty much. I do like, you know, like, as I kind of mentioned, like to have the organ in the church buildings, you know, and like the, I don't know, I could maybe see a role for some sort of structure of sorts, but like, you know, because it's kind of like the whole freedom, I don't know, I think it's always a balance, you know, like between kind of keeping in touch with the past and like the inheritance of tradition in a sense, you know, and then like being kind of open to that mystical, revelatory newness of, and like the kind of individual almost of like the freedom aspect, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, but that sounds pretty freaking exactly what I would want. We're going here?
Yeah, you gotta go around.
We're
gonna have to go around this. So he's my best friend from high school and college, and he used to live in DC on Capitol Hill here for years. I convinced him to move out here. He found someone, got married. They bought that farm. It's a horse farm. They don't have horses, but and then they started having kids in the farm and whatnot. Supporting them with the farm. We butcher the hogs, butcher the lambs, butcher the meat birds. We collect the eggs. And then I had some psychedelic experiences, which rocked the world. Different things that's just very much resonating with the things I was learning about Christianity and such, and also just to like that personal experience and being like, oh wow, Christians are basically doing this, and so it was a non-denominational, charismatic, type church. And, so over the years, you know, we've kind of done some of that, but we've also done home, you know, in our home. So we kind of get together on Wednesdays. Last night we got together and we switched each other's homes. now that we know people, we've been in the community a while, have known some people, so it's like, it's so funny that Estuary thing came up. We were doing it, kind of like, we were kind of, in addition to the home church thing, we were kind of doing a small group conversation. Yeah, like, it was almost just like Estuary, in addition. So, and it was like, you know, topics all over the place. So it wasn't just like religious topics. Go straight. So when they were doing it, I was telling them, when I did the little thing with Paul on his channel, I was telling them that Estuary stuff you got to top line. When I've done something just like that, I'd be very interested to, you know, help out with that or do more or start one or whatever.
I mentioned psychedelics were a big part of the heritage of your family, or have you guys dabbled in like more spirituality or like psychedelics or anything?
No, not really. I don't really know much about any of that. I mean, it's interesting to me. I hear people online talking about it in the corner. You know, people talk about it. Yeah, my folks on both sides were Catholic, like way back. Both, you know, I'm Italian on the mom's side, very Catholic, and then my dad's side, he was adopted into an Irish family, and they're very Catholic. So they grew up. My parents grew up Catholic. So when that Jesus Revolution hit, and the Catholic charismatic movement, the Buchanan University hit, they were part of those two circles, and they weren't Catholic anymore in the traditional sense of the word.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I think about the general trend, honestly. And like over the past 2,000 years, I would think that as the age of Pisces.
I'm not a conservative, I'm not a progressive, so I'm more libertarian. So I prefer not having us being all these words all the time. The government, the federal government especially, should be very, very, very small. You know, like we just went through 4 years of the nonsense with COVID and Biden and, you know, all this woke nonsense. And then now we got this totalitarian dictator rounded up in terrorists, sky-high terrorists. It's like, no, that's the exact opposite of what you want. You want freedom, you want people to trade across borders. Georgetown is like pre-existent DC. It was kind of why they made DC around that area, because Georgetown was already a thing there. But Georgetown's small. It's like a little colonial downtown Main Street type area. And then they put the big DC around it. So later on, it was just a colonial Maryland town. You know, Maryland donated that part of DC. Virginia donated that part, and then Virginia took it back. It's the small part. So now it's only the Maryland part of DC. The part of DC is Maryland donated. So this road was the original that went through Georgetown to Frederick. Down I'm in Frederick. You know, that big highway that we just took, 270, that's the, you know, modern version of the road from Georgetown to Frederick. This is the old road from Georgetown to Frederick. So Frederick was 1745 when it was done. Georgetown's even much older than that. Wow. We're about to come up on Pennsylvania. And the main mall area where the Capitol and the Washington Monument and Lincoln Memorial, you know, with the reflecting pool, you've seen that a lot on TV. The White House is just, that runs like this from west to east, and the White House is just up by the Washington Monument to the north of the Washington Monument. So we're coming from the north. We're going to hit the White House first, then we're going to go past the Washington Monument and see the Washington Monument on our left, Lincoln Memorial on our right, then we'll see the Potomac River, and we'll take a left at Independence, and we'll go up towards the Capitol.
Okay.
And there's Smithsonian's all along the way. That main area is loaded with Air and Space Museum, Natural History Museum, American History Museum, you know, Portrait Gallery, National Archives. I'll point them all out to you, and you can decide what you want to see, if you want to see any of them.
Ominous.
I should probably call Joy as well. Maybe suggest that alteration in the plan. Whoop! Hey, probably could have stayed in that lane.
Yeah, the bus is going to stop quite often.
Hey, man, whoa!
Yeah, the bus is going to
real
stop
tight.
quite often on the
Gotcha.
way down here. You can stay in the middle or even the left.
Yeah. Ba-ba-ba. It do be toasty in here now.
Yeah, you probably better add some oil. Probably need
Sorry
to add
about
some
that.
oil.
What you got there, Joe?
This is a new magnetic drain plug. This is what you do when you want to save money and fix your drain plug.
Something wrong with the drain plug.
Spraying oil everywhere.
That's no good. Yes. We just changed the oil a couple days ago, and because there was something wrong with the threads, so we are fixing that.
I mean, you probably should just go to her place tonight and don't even worry about it.
The New York people wanted to meet us,
Yeah.
but they're okay, Bucko, what you doing there?
Yeah, they're on the board with me, Emily and Rachel.
Yeah.
And when John mentioned you guys' trip last time, and last time we had our board meeting, and they were like, "Oh yeah, it's coming to New York. They can stay here."
Yeah, that was close. The guy almost swiped out right there. Yeah. Yes, the problem is their next meeting is on the 30th in New York, so it just doesn't really fit with our time frame.
Yeah. I definitely don't blame you. I wouldn't be going back and backtracking.
Yeah.
Going all the way around the country, might as well get started.
Yeah,
going
for
south.
sure. Yeah. That's the goal. Would be good to get this AC situation fixed though. Some nice cold air coming out here.
It's the old executive building, and it's right next to the White House. It's a part of the White House complex. The vice president's office is in there. Irish embassy. We've got the Zambia embassy on the other side. There's a lot of embassies all through here. This is the American Red Cross building. This is Daughters of the American Revolution, I think.
Red Cross was almost my name.
Was that why your mom was thinking about red also?
Yeah, that was the joke part of it.
And last name's Cross.
Yep.
Organization of American States. It's like the Western Hemisphere. It's like the UN of the Western Hemisphere.
Gotcha.
Flaming sword. Giant flaming sword at that.
Wow.
Nice.
So this is Constitution. This is closed right now, but normally it's open.
Okay.
And it goes all the way across from Virginia all the way to the Capitol. So if you look here to the right, you're going to see the Lincoln Memorial down there at the end of the reflecting pool.
Check out the Washington Monument.
And yeah.
What are you?
I can take a picture of you guys together if you want. This is the World War II memorial here.
Yep.
So the Lincoln, you might catch a glimpse of the Lincoln down there. No, you're not going to see it. Yeah, you're not going to see it. So you're going to go around the circle and go left. There it is. There's the Lincoln Memorial. You got it now.
Wow, check out that airplane.
Yeah, this is the Reagan National.
Good to know we can make it through a city environment. A little hard when I'm trying to look at everything too, but
This is the oldest one. There's art gallery.
Really?
This is the oldest Smithsonian building. This is the original Smithsonian. This was just this building.
Huh.
That's the Natural History Museum. This is the American History Museum.
all the buildings are so beautiful, you know?
There's the Capitol. Right up ahead of us is the Capitol.
Welcome to the capital of the United States, Joe. What do you say? Do you feel like an American?
This is Eternal Lane. This is the Air and Space Museum here. This one with the little crystal-y looking things on the...
Yeah, I was just looking at that.
This Aerospace Museum, that's pretty cool. This Museum of the Bible is behind it. 2 blocks that way from you. That costs money though, because it's not part of the government.
I think I'm going to add it all and then just drain some out. Man, gas at 277 there. We can carry a bottle of wine to give to somebody too.
Sounds good.
There's an election. It's regulated chaos. No one knows what's going to happen. It's the death of the old king. Bang, we go into a chaotic state. Everyone argues for a while. And then out of that argument, they produce a consensus and poof, we're in a new state. Right? That's the meta story, right? Order, chaos, order. But it's partial order, chaos, reconstituted and revivified order. That's the thing, is that this order is better than that order. So there's progress. And that's partly why I think the idea of moral relativism is wrong. There's progress in moral order. And it was defined properly by Piaget. The new moral order does everything the old moral order did, and some additional things. That's what constitutes progress. Now, here's a strange idea, and we'll talk about this more as we progress through the class. What's the ultimate in order? Well, it's not this, obviously, because it can collapse. And it's not this, because it can collapse. And so then you think, well, there's no ultimate order, even though there's progression. But then you have to move it up one level of abstraction. What's the ultimate order? Doing this. Willingness to do that. That's the ultimate order, right? It's order at a different level of analysis, and you can see that's what's represented in that idea. That's what that idea means. That's the phoenix, right? The phoenix is something that lives, ages, and then allows itself to be consumed by fire and then reemerges. And the old phoenix gets old and burns, and the new phoenix reemerges. And so the real phoenix is the thing that's constant across those transformations. That's the Jungian self. That's what he meant. The self is the element of the psyche that remains intact across transformations. Yeah, it's a bloody amazing idea. That's for sure. And you could think about that. That's why Jung claimed, for example, in Ion, primarily, that Christ was a symbol of the self. That was his consequence of decades of meditation on the structure of Christianity. Because it's the dying and resurrecting part of the psyche that remains constant across the transformation. So the ultimate order isn't to identify with this. That's your current state of being. And it isn't to identify with that because, well, you can't by definition. And it isn't even to identify with that. It's to let these things go as they need to go. That's a sacrifice. And to allow this continual process of transformation to occur. And part of that is the admission that you're wrong. And so partly what you're doing is, at micro levels and at macro levels, where are you not what you could be? And when you realize that, it'll take you apart a little bit and burn you down to your core a little bit, and then allow you to regenerate. And if you do that continually, then everything that you don't need burns away, right?